I think that it's very hard to gauge how many people have taken it, because where these pills come from, they don't release figures of how many people get them in case customs are shut down, because for a lot of people it's their only option, it's their only way of getting an abortion. I know that when I go to meetings or go, there's even been times that I've just been walking down the street and women will come up to me and tell me that they've ordered pills, that they've had an abortion, and I'd say this happens, I'd say 3 or 4 times a month.
Well, it was a very, I'm sure, difficult decision for you to go public about this. But I just want to take you through what actually happened. You had the abortion pill sent to you in Northern Ireland. Yeah. And did you actually take it within Northern Ireland?
I go to college in the Republic of Ireland, where abortion is also illegal. But you can't get the abortion pills sent here because customs will seize it.
Right.
So in being from the north, I ordered it from there. But the law is that if you procure noxious substances to induce an abortion, that's what the crime is. So do you believe that you broke the law? And in fact, you must have known when you took this pill then that you might be prosecuted. There is a possibility that you'd be prosecuted. I always, at the time when I was pregnant, it was always in the back of my mind that what I was doing was illegal, but I just didn't want to be pregnant so much that just wasn't high up on my list of priorities, that it's like, yes, it is illegal, but no, I don't want to be pregnant, no, I can't afford to be pregnant, and it just wasn't the right time. So in a lot of ways, it's this strange double-edged sword where you're worried about prosecution, but at the same time, you're so relieved just not to be pregnant. Thank you, Suzanne. Well, can I put this to David Ford? Technically, presumably, David Ford, Suzanne could still be prosecuted.
Well, that is a decision for the police to consider charges and for the Public Prosecution Service to continue taking those forward. They're not issues for the ministers to decide. No, but it is a possibility. It is a legal possibility. And I wonder if you have sympathy with Suzanne's plight. Well, one can have sympathy for the plight of an individual, but ministers' roles are to carry out their duties, and individual sympathy is clearly an issue which needs to be considered. That's why, for example, the consultation which I conducted last year was around the issue of allowing abortions in the case of fatal fetal abnormality, because of the considerable concerns that people had about the welfare of women who were stuck with a dreadful diagnosis. But of course that would not necessarily be the case for Suzanne and other women who had taken the abortion pill. I accept that's not the case, but what I'm talking about is where I have acted to show sympathy on a case which was highlighted within Northern Ireland, and where it showed that there was at least a willingness on the part of one minister to consider a difficult issue. So do you think that the Stormont Assembly should come up with a legislation that changes to, as it were, come within the parameters of human rights legislation? Is it time for Northern Ireland to move now? Well, I conducted a consultation which began last autumn, over a year ago, on the issue of allowing abortion in the cases of fatal fetal abnormality and sexual crime, rape or incest. There was a strong recommendation that we should act in the case of fatal fetal abnormality. I have put that in a paper to the executive, because as a minister I have to get executive approval before I could seek to legislate. The suggestion that we should legislate in the case of fatal fetal abnormality, the law, it's much more complex in the case of sexual crime, and that paper has been sitting with the executive, and I'm certainly hoping that following the High Court ruling that I will have a discussion with fellow ministers eventually on the 21st of January at the next stated executive meeting. Yes, so it will be this month. On the question of change to the law in Northern Ireland, do you think there is appetite among the legislature for changing to the 1967 Abortion Act, which is in place in other parts of the United Kingdom? I think there is very little likelihood there will be an appetite for changing to the 1967 Act. I think there is the possibility of getting a sufficient appetite to legislate in the case of the issues that we're looking at in terms of particularly fatal fetal abnormality, where, as the judge said, there is no life to protect. But in the case, as you heard, of Suzanne, that means really that for people who do not
face these different things, which is sexual crime, fetal abnormality, that actually having an abortion in Northern Ireland is illegal, is open to prosecution, and holds a very, very heavy prison sentence?
Well, yes, subject to all the provisos that I said about action taken by the police and by the prosecution service. But the reality is, I can only operate where I get the acceptance of a majority of the members of the executive. And you've just had a discussion about difficulties within single-party governments and cabinet ministers disagreeing. Well, I'm a minister in an executive which consists of members of 4 different parties with wildly different views.
Well, let me put this to Suzanne. Suzanne, nothing that is being discussed in terms of human rights legislation will make a difference to, I imagine, many women in Northern Ireland who do take the abortion pill. I wonder what you feel public opinion. I mean, David Ford is talking about the fact that they're in a multi-party government in Northern Ireland. Do you accept that a lot of a public opinion will not be on your side in Northern Ireland?
I think that outwardly, a lot of people in Northern Ireland would say that they don't agree with abortion, but privately, they would. I think that because abortion is illegal, there is this huge stigma attached to it. It isn't easy for people to come out and say, I've had an abortion, or even I support abortion, because the parties in Stormont, they just don't want to address it. Surely the role of parties in Stormont is to represent the people of Northern Ireland, and essentially what they're doing is ignoring half the population, sweeping us under the carpet, hoping that they don't have to listen to us, that they'll never have to deal with us. I don't want their sympathy.
No.
I want the right to control my own body, and they're not going to give that to me.
Well, they're not going to give that, and I wonder what that means to you and other women who are considering this path. You are actually, presumably, in contravention of the law and know that. And what will that mean for you?
Because I know what I've done is legal, and I know that Stormont aren't going to address it. The only way I can see going forward is for me to make the law unworkable. I've done this, it's illegal, and I also continue to provide abortion pills for other people that need them, which is also illegal. I'm tired of hearing there's no appetite for it, there's no appetite for it. No one has ever asked me.
Thank you both very much indeed.